They manipulate with precision, and it's never by accident. People like this don't stumble into their cruelty, they craft it. Every word, every look, every sigh, every silence, it's calculated to shape how you think and feel. They know your weak spots, they know your fears, your doubts, the exact buttons to push to make you second guess yourself. And once they figure out those buttons, they don't just press them. They pound on them over and over until you start believing that maybe they're right, maybe you're wrong, maybe you're not as strong or capable as you thought. This isn't clumsy conflict. This is a strategy honed over time, designed to make you question your own reality so they can rewrite it in a way that serves them. It starts subtly. You tell them about something that bothered you, and they respond with, "You're overreacting," not once but consistently. You bring up facts, and they twist the conversation until you're defending something you never even said. You're explaining yourself for hours, only to walk away wondering how the blame somehow landed on you. They shift the focus so skillfully that you forget what the original issue even was. That's not a misunderstanding. That's precision. They don't want clarity. They want confusion, because confusion gives them the upper hand. Over time, you'll notice you start filtering yourself. You hesitate to speak up because you already know how the conversation will go. You know they'll spin it, twist it, make you feel like you're crazy. You think you're protecting yourself by staying quiet, but what's really happening is that you're shrinking. They're teaching you through calculated manipulation that your voice is not safe to use. And every time you choose silence over confrontation, they win another inch of control. They're not just altering your perception of them. They're altering your perception of yourself. They plant seeds of doubt and water them with lies until you can't tell where their voice ends and your own thoughts begin. You'll hear them in your head, second-guessing your choices, mocking your goals, questioning your memory. They make you doubt the evidence right in front of your eyes. They'll deny something you saw them do. They'll claim they never said what you clearly remember. And eventually, you start to wonder, if they're so confident, maybe they're right. That's the trap. The moment you start trusting their version of reality over your own, you've handed them the keys to your mind. And here's the dangerous truth. They know exactly when to soften. When they feel you pulling away, they'll suddenly become attentive, charming, even apologetic. They'll sprinkle in just enough kindness to make you question leaving. They'll act as if they finally understand you, as if they see your side, as if change is coming. But it's bait. They're reeling you back in just long enough to tighten their grip. And every time you fall for it, the cycle gets harder to break. You need to understand something. This kind of manipulation isn't just about arguments. It's about power. It's about ownership. They want to own the way you think, the way you feel, the way you see yourself. If they can convince you that your reality is flawed, they can rewrite it however they please. And if they can rewrite it, they can make themselves the hero, the victim, or whatever role suits them in the moment. That's why you never truly win an argument with them. You can present facts, evidence, logic. It doesn't matter. They're not here to find the truth. They're here to control it. If you're wondering whether you're imagining it, ask yourself this. Do you feel the need to justify your feelings to them? Do you find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do? Do you walk away from conversations feeling more confused than when you started? Those aren't signs of healthy communication. Those are signs that you're in the grip of someone who's weaponizing your trust against you. And make no mistake, manipulation is a form of attack. It's not as visible as a raised fist, but it can be just as destructive. It wears you down from the inside out. It makes you question your instincts, which are your first line of defense. If they can take that from you, they can keep you stuck indefinitely. That's why it's so important to see it for what it is. Once you name it, you can fight it. And once you fight it, you can leave it behind. But here's the hard part. You will not get closure from them. You will not get them to admit what they've done. You will not get a sincere apology. Because to admit it would be to surrender control. And control is the only thing they value. So stop waiting for the conversation where they finally see you. Stop hoping that if you explain it just right, they'll understand. They already understand. They've understood from the beginning. That's what makes it so dangerous. The power shift happens when you stop explaining yourself to someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. You reclaim control the moment you decide that your reality does not need their validation to be true. You don't need them to agree with what you saw, felt, or experienced. You were there. You know. And that's enough. You want to break their control. Trust yourself again. Speak your truth without needing permission. Put distance between their voice and your thoughts. The less you engage, the weaker their grip becomes. They cannot manipulate a mind that refuses to be a playground for their games. And when you finally walk away, truly walk away, you'll see it clearly. They were never as powerful as they made you believe. The only power they ever had was the power you gave them. And the moment you take it back, they have nothing. They drain your energy, and it's not the kind of tiredness a night of good sleep can fix. It's deeper, heavier, almost invisible to those around you, but painfully clear to you. It's the exhaustion that comes from being in the presence of someone who constantly takes without giving, who consumes without ever replenishing. At first, you might not notice it because it doesn't happen all at once. It's small at the beginning. A conversation that leaves you slightly off balance. An argument that drags on until you're too tired to care. A subtle dismissal of something important to you. But over time, these small cuts add up. Before you realize it, you're walking around feeling like you're carrying a weight you can't see, one that grows heavier every time you interact with them. They don't just drain your physical energy, they siphon your mental and emotional reserves too. You can wake up feeling strong, motivated, ready to take on your day, but after dealing with them, you feel like someone pulled the plug on your spirit. You can't think as clearly. You're distracted. Your enthusiasm fades. Even the things that once brought you joy feel like a chore. That's because you're not just managing your life. You're managing their moods, their demands, their unpredictable reactions. You're constantly on guard, calculating your words, checking your tone, adjusting your behavior to keep the peace. It's exhausting to live in a state of constant emotional readiness. And the truth is, they thrive on it. They want you tired. They want you too drained to question them, too worn out to set boundaries, too depleted to focus on your own goals. The more energy you spend dealing with their drama, the less you have for yourself. That's the trade-off they're counting on. You don't have the time or strength to invest in your growth because you're too busy cleaning up the messes they make or managing the storms they create. You'll notice that their presence feels different from other people's. A healthy relationship, whether it's friendship, family, or love, will sometimes challenge you, yes, but it will also uplift you. Even when you disagree, there's still an exchange of respect and value. With someone who drains you, there's no balance. You give, they take. You support, they demand. You listen, they unload. They treat your mind like a storage space for their negativity, and every time you try to clear it out, they fill it again. Sometimes they don't even do it with obvious cruelty. They may disguise it as needing your help, leaning on you for advice, or just venting. And because you're compassionate, you want to be there for them. But over time, you realize it's never a two-way street. When you need them, they're unavailable. When you try to share your own struggles, they pivot the conversation back to themselves. It's a one-sided transaction, and you're paying all the costs. The danger here is that the drain is gradual. It's like a slow leak. You don't notice it at first, but one day you wake up and your tank is empty. You stop doing things you love because you don't have the energy. You stop pursuing opportunities because you feel overwhelmed. You start doubting whether you can handle as much as you used to, not realizing it's not you, it's them. They've been pulling from your reserves for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to be full. And when you try to pull back, they notice. Suddenly, they'll ramp up the pressure. They might guilt you, reminding you of all the times they needed you. They might play the victim, making you feel selfish for prioritizing yourself. They might even provoke you, starting conflicts just to pull you back into their orbit. They know exactly how to keep you hooked because the energy they drain from you is what fuels them. Your exhaustion is their comfort zone because a tired person is easier to control. The turning point comes when you realize that feeling constantly tired, anxious, or emotionally heavy after being around someone is not normal. It's not your fault. And it's not something you have to tolerate. You are allowed to protect your energy the way you protect anything valuable. You don't leave your door wide open for anyone to walk in and take what they want. So why do you do it with your mental and emotional resources? Protecting your energy starts with awareness. Notice who leaves you feeling lighter and who leaves you feeling heavier. Pay attention to patterns. If every time you interact with them, you walk away feeling smaller, weaker, or more anxious, you need to accept that as truth. Stop rationalizing it. Stop making excuses for them. They might never change, but you can change how much access they have to you. Sometimes, protecting your energy will mean putting up boundaries they won't like. It will mean saying no, limiting your time with them, or walking away entirely. And yes, they will resist it. They will accuse you of being cold, distant, or uncaring. But remember, people who truly value you will respect your need to protect yourself. People who only value what you give them will try to make you feel guilty for keeping it. That's how you know the difference. When you start reclaiming your energy, you'll notice the shift. You'll have more mental space. Your mood will lift. Your creativity will return. You'll start remembering who you were before you became so drained. And the more you feel that power returning, the easier it will be to protect it. Because once you've experienced life without that constant leak, you'll never want to go back. They thrive on your pain, and that truth can be one of the hardest things to accept because it feels almost inhuman. You want to believe that deep down, people care when you're hurting. You want to believe that your struggles would make someone who claims to care about you want to help you rise. But with them, the opposite is true. Your pain isn't an unfortunate side effect to them. It's fuel. It's the one thing that feeds their ego, validates their control, and keeps the balance of power in their favor. The more you suffer, the more they feel secure. It doesn't always start with obvious cruelty. Sometimes it's subtle. You share that you've had a bad day, and you catch the flicker of satisfaction in their eyes, so quick you almost convince yourself you imagined it. You tell them about a setback, and instead of offering support, they highlight how you should have known better or done more. They disguise their enjoyment as just being honest, or telling it like it is. But if you strip away the words, you see it for what it really is, a quiet celebration of your struggle. They don't want you to bounce back too quickly, because your vulnerability is their opportunity. When you're hurting, you're easier to manage. You second guess your decisions. You rely on their opinion more. You're too focused on your own wounds to notice the way they're tightening their hold on you. They know that when you're in pain, you won't have the energy to set boundaries, to fight back, or to stand up for yourself. And that's when they move in closer. They offer just enough false comfort to make it look like they care, but it's not because they want you to heal. It's because they want to keep you exactly where you are. You'll notice this pattern most when good things start happening for you. If you're dealing with someone who thrives on your pain, your wins will make them uncomfortable. Your success will trigger them. They'll minimize your achievements, point out flaws in your victories, or immediately shift the conversation to something negative. Why? Because when you're winning, you're harder to control. Your confidence grows. Your independence strengthens. And they can't have that, so they'll look for ways to chip away at your high moments until you're back down to where they're comfortable. Struggling, doubting, hurting. Sometimes they'll even create the pain themselves. They'll pick fights out of nowhere. They'll bring up your insecurities in moments when you're already feeling low. They'll remind you of past mistakes, right when you're finally starting to move forward. It's not accidental, it's engineered. They're planting seeds of doubt and watching them grow, knowing that every tear, every setback, every ounce of frustration pulls you back into their control. And they will do it all while maintaining an image to the outside world that makes them seem like a caring, concerned person. They'll play the role of the supportive friend, partner, or family member when others are watching. They'll talk about how they've been there for you, or tried to help. But the reality is that their help always comes with strings, and it's designed to keep you dependent, not free. That's why when you try to explain to others what's really happening, you might not be believed. The mask they wear in public is polished, but the face they show you in private is the real one. The emotional damage from someone who thrives on your pain is deep, because it rewires how you see yourself. Over time, you start to feel like maybe you really are as weak or flawed as they imply. You start to measure your worth by their reactions instead of your own truth. And without realizing it, you stop celebrating yourself altogether because you've been conditioned to expect their disapproval or dismissal. That's exactly what they want. to strip you of the ability to validate yourself so that you'll keep coming to them for validation you'll never truly receive. Breaking free from this dynamic starts with one critical understanding: your pain does not belong to them. It's not for their consumption. It's not a tool for their satisfaction. Your pain is yours to process, to learn from, to heal from. And you have the right to do that away from anyone who weaponizes it against you. That means creating space, even if it's uncomfortable. It means being cautious about what you share and with whom. It means noticing who lifts you up when you're down and who subtly pushes you lower. When you start to heal, expect resistance. They might accuse you of being selfish, distant, or ungrateful. They might suddenly become more attentive, trying to pull you back into the cycle. But remember, their sudden interest in your well-being isn't about you. It's about keeping their supply of control intact. Don't mistake temporary niceness for genuine change. If their concern disappears the moment you start feeling better, you have your answer. The more you protect your peace, the less access they'll have to your pain. The less access they have to your pain, the less power they have over you. And once you've experienced even a small taste of life without their shadow hanging over you, you'll see how much lighter you can feel. You'll see how much of your energy has been tied up in feeding someone who only wanted to see you crawl. They may thrive on your pain, but you don't have to keep supplying it. The day you stop allowing them to feed on your struggles is the day you take back your freedom. And the moment you start thriving in spite of them, you show them the one truth they can't stand, that no matter how much they tried to keep you down, you found a way to rise. They wear a mask of innocence, and that mask is their greatest weapon. It's polished, convincing, and crafted so carefully that most people will never see past it. To the outside world, they look like the kind of person you'd trust without hesitation. They're charming, well-spoken, maybe even generous when it suits them. They smile in all the right moments, speak with just the right tone, and know exactly how to present themselves in a way that makes others lower their guard. This mask is not an accident. It's a calculated disguise built to protect them from being exposed. And it's why so many people never believe the truth about who they really are. Behind closed doors, the mask comes off, the warmth in their voice disappears, the charm evaporates, and what's left is the real person. Cold, calculating, and manipulative. You see sides of them that no one else sees, and when you try to explain it to others, you're met with disbelief. But they're such a nice person. They've always been so kind to me. I can't imagine them doing that. And that's the point. They've designed their public image so that when you speak the truth, you sound like the one who's exaggerating, overreacting, or even lying. This is what makes dealing with them so dangerous. They're not careless with their reputation. They protect it like their life depends on it. They know that as long as the world sees them as good, your voice will be easy to dismiss. They'll do things for show, not for sincerity. They might volunteer in the community, post uplifting quotes, or speak eloquently about kindness and respect, all while tearing someone apart behind closed doors. It's not about living those values. It's about being seen as someone who does. When you're on the receiving end of their real behavior, you start to feel isolated. You realize you can't talk to others about what's happening without risking your own credibility. And that isolation works in their favor. It keeps you quiet. It keeps you doubting whether speaking up is worth the backlash. They'll even use their charm to recruit allies. People who believe in their innocent image so much that they'll defend them without question. These allies might be friends, family members, or colleagues, and they become another layer of protection around the person you're trying to expose. What's even more insidious is that they know when to put the mask back on with you. If they sense you're reaching your breaking point, they'll suddenly be sweet, thoughtful, or generous again. They'll remind you of the version of themselves that drew you in at the beginning. You'll start to think maybe you misunderstood them. Maybe things weren't as bad as you thought. But this is just another layer of manipulation. They're not changing, they're adjusting their mask to keep you in place. The longer you deal with someone like this, the more you start to question your own judgment. You'll wonder how you could have been fooled in the first place. You'll replay the moments when you ignored red flags because their mask seemed so convincing. You might even blame yourself for trusting them. But you have to understand, this isn't about you being foolish. This is about them being highly skilled in deception. They know how to read people, how to appeal to what you value, and how to mirror the traits you admire until you feel a connection. That connection isn't real. It's a carefully constructed illusion. You'll also notice that when they harm you and you react, they'll immediately put the mask back on for others. They'll paint you as unstable, emotional, or difficult, while they appear calm, reasonable, and composed. This contrast makes you look like the problem. They might even tell people they're worried about you, pretending concern while actually planting seeds of doubt about your character. It's one of the most infuriating parts of dealing with them, watching them manipulate how others see you while hiding the truth about themselves. The way to break free from their mask isn't to try to tear it off for everyone to see. That's a battle you often can't win because their public image has been carefully built over years. Instead, your power comes from seeing through it for yourself and refusing to be fooled by it again. The mask works because it keeps you hoping for the version of them you first met. The moment you accept that version was a performance, not reality, you start to loosen their grip on you. Protect yourself by trusting patterns, not appearances. Look at what they consistently do, not what they occasionally say or show. The mask will always be appealing, but patterns don't lie. If their words and actions don't align, believe the actions. If they're kind in public but cruel in private, believe the private. Once you stop buying into their image, you take away their ability to use it against you. You may never convince everyone else of who they truly are, and that's okay. Your freedom doesn't depend on public opinion, it depends on your clarity. The mask they wear might fool the world, but it doesn't have to fool you anymore. Once you stop chasing the illusion they project, you'll see them for exactly what they are. And that's when their power over you begins to disappear. They can keep their mask. You'll keep your truth, and in the end, truth will always be the thing that sets you free. They never take responsibility, and it's not because they don't understand what they've done. It's because admitting fault would mean giving up control, and control is the one thing they refuse to lose. With them, every problem is somehow your fault. Every misunderstanding is a result of your actions, your words, your overreaction. They could start a fire and still convince you that you're the one who lit the match. This isn't simply a lack of accountability. It's a deliberate tactic to keep you in a position where you're constantly defending yourself instead of questioning them. When something goes wrong, they're masters at rewriting the story. If you call them out on hurtful behavior, they'll twist the conversation until you're apologizing to them. They'll bring up something unrelated from weeks, months, or even years ago to shift the focus away from what they've done. Suddenly, the issue you were discussing is buried under a pile of accusations about your past mistakes. They keep you busy answering for things you may have already apologized for, all so they can avoid answering for the harm they've caused right now. This constant blame shifting is exhausting, and over time, it starts to wear down your sense of reality. You begin to wonder if maybe they're right, if maybe you really are the problem. That's exactly the point. If they can convince you that you're the one who's always wrong, then you'll never hold them accountable. You'll spend all your energy trying to be better for them, while they continue to repeat the same behavior without consequence. And they don't just deny responsibility for their mistakes. They deny your feelings altogether. If you say something hurt them, they'll tell you you're too sensitive. If you share that you feel disrespected, they'll claim you're misinterpreting things. This is how they invalidate you, while keeping the spotlight off themselves. Instead of acknowledging their role, they frame you as irrational, overly emotional, or even unstable. Sometimes they'll use false apologies to maintain the illusion of accountability. They'll say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," instead of, "I'm sorry for what I did." It's a subtle difference, but it shifts the blame back onto you. They're not apologizing for their actions. They're implying that the problem is your reaction. It's a non-apology dressed up as compassion, but underneath it's just another way to avoid admitting fault. In public, they'll often play the role of someone who takes responsibility. They might tell stories about learning from mistakes or growing as a person, but those stories are carefully chosen. They're always about minor or harmless missteps, never about the real harm they've caused. They curate these moments to make themselves look humble and self-aware, when in reality, the moments that truly matter are the ones they'll never admit to. The damage of this constant denial runs deep because it changes how you see yourself. You stop trusting your own perspective. You start to think that maybe you really are too critical, too emotional, or too hard to please. You begin to feel guilty for even bringing up your concerns. And that guilt is exactly what they want, because the more guilty you feel, the less likely you are to confront them in the future. When you try to set boundaries with someone like this, expect pushback. They'll claim you're being unfair. They'll accuse you of holding grudges. They might even turn others against you, painting you as the one who refuses to move on. But here's the truth. Boundaries aren't about holding on to the past. They're about protecting your future. If someone refuses to take responsibility for their actions, you have every right to protect yourself from being hurt the same way again. The turning point comes when you stop trying to get them to admit what they've done. You realize that accountability isn't something you can force. It's something a person has to choose, and they've already shown you they won't. Waiting for them to own up to their actions is like waiting for the rain in a drought. It keeps you standing still while everything around you dries up. You reclaim your power by stepping out of the blame cycle altogether. When they try to twist the story, you don't play along. When they throw accusations your way, you don't waste your energy defending every detail. You know the truth, and that's enough. You no longer need them to validate it. This shift isn't about winning arguments. It's about refusing to let them control the narrative of your life. You stop engaging in circular conversations that go nowhere. You stop letting them define what's real and what's not. And in doing so, you create space for your own voice to grow stronger again. People who never take responsibility often rely on the hope that you'll get tired and give in, that you'll drop the issue just to keep the peace. But once you understand that peace without accountability is just silence over injustice, you stop settling for it. You'd rather have distance and clarity than closeness built on lies. The day you stop needing their admission is the day their grip on you weakens. Because without your need for their acknowledgement, they lose the leverage they've been using to keep you stuck. You don't have to convince them, prove yourself, or get them to see the truth. You just have to live it. And when you do, you take back the power they've been holding over you all along. They sabotage your growth, and they do it with a precision that makes it feel like every step forward you try to take is somehow met with resistance you can't fully explain. It's not always loud or obvious. They don't always scream, "Don't do it," or block your path outright. Sometimes it's a quiet seed of doubt planted in your mind, right when you're starting to feel confident. Sometimes it's a sarcastic remark disguised as a joke that makes you second guess your abilities. And sometimes it's outright criticism designed to make you abandon your plans before they can take root. When you start chasing something better, whether it's a goal, a new habit, a career change, or simply becoming a stronger version of yourself, they feel threatened, because your growth shifts the balance of power. The more you rise, the less dependent you become on them. The more confident you feel, the less influence they have. And for someone who thrives on control, that is unacceptable. So they'll do whatever they can to clip your wings before you can fly. They'll call your dreams unrealistic, your ideas foolish, your ambitions a waste of time. And they'll do it with a tone that makes it sound like they're protecting you from disappointment, as if they're being practical or honest. But the truth is, they're not protecting you. They're protecting their position in your life. They know that if you succeed, if you outgrow them, you might see them for what they really are, and then you might leave. Their sabotage doesn't always come as direct negativity. Sometimes it's disguised as distraction. Just when you're about to start working on something important, they'll create drama that demands your attention. Just when you're making progress, they'll stir up a conflict that pulls your focus away. They know that growth takes consistency, and if they can disrupt your rhythm enough times, you'll start to lose momentum. And once you lose momentum, you'll start to doubt whether you can finish what you started. They also know how to target your self-belief. If they can make you feel incapable, they don't need to stop you. You'll stop yourself. That's why they bring up your past failures at just the right moment, or point out how someone else tried and didn't succeed. They'll remind you of times you struggled, not to help you learn from it, but to keep you stuck in it. And they'll make these comments sound casual, as if they're just making conversation, but each one is a calculated hit to your confidence. The most damaging part is that this kind of sabotage can be so subtle that you don't even realize it's happening until you're looking back. You might think you gave up on something because you lost interest or ran out of energy. But if you trace the steps, you'll see the moments where their words, their actions, their manufactured crisis pulled you off course. And by the time you see it clearly, you've already lost time you can't get back. Sometimes they'll even pretend to support you. At first, they'll encourage your new goal, act impressed by your determination, maybe even help you take the first step. But as soon as they see you gaining traction, they'll start planting doubts. They'll question your choices. They'll suggest, maybe this isn't the right time. They'll talk about how risky it is, or how much it will cost you, or how hard it will be to succeed. It's not about the risk. It's about slowing you down until you stop moving altogether. And when you do succeed despite their efforts, they'll find a way to minimize it. They'll say you just got lucky, or that anyone could have done it, or that it's not that big of a deal. They'll downplay your achievement so that you don't feel the pride you deserve. Because pride builds confidence, and confidence leads to independence, and independence threatens their control. Breaking free from this kind of sabotage starts with recognizing it for what it is. You have to become aware of the moments where your excitement fades right after talking to them. You have to notice when your motivation disappears after one of their comments. And once you see the pattern, you have to understand that it's not about whether they mean well. It's about whether their influence is helping you grow or keeping you small. Protecting your growth means guarding your vision. You don't need to share every step of your plans with someone who has shown you they'll use that information to slow you down. You don't need their approval to move forward. You don't even need their understanding. You need to decide that your growth is worth protecting at all costs. That means setting boundaries on how much access they have to your goals and your mindset. When you start protecting your progress, expect pushback. They might accuse you of shutting them out. They might act offended that you're not including them. They might even try harder to create distractions or stir up doubt. But that's how you'll know you're on the right track. Because if your growth didn't threaten them, they wouldn't be fighting it. The moment you stop letting them dictate the speed and direction of your progress, you take your power back. You realize that the only person who gets to decide how far you go is you. And once you start moving forward without their interference, you'll see how much more you're capable of. You'll see that all along the chains were never on your ability. They were on your belief. And the moment you break them, you'll rise faster than they ever wanted you to.